Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano board. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing the MiSTer against the Genesis plus GX emulator. I had a poll of people recommending the emulators to try for each individual MiSTer versus Software Emulation video, and this is the one that won that vote. Before we get too far involved though, if you give me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down there as well. So I am running these emulators on Windows 10, and the only applications open are OBS and the emulator itself. So there is nothing else running on my system. I use an i7 and a GTX 1080 Ti. So taking a look at MiSTer up against the Genesis, when we originally did this comparison, the intro to Streets of Rage 2 is a great way to test if everything was cycle accurate to the original hardware. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing on the GX emulator, because I can frame match these to the same degree in DaVinci Resolve. I can see if anything gets out of sync. If both of these emulators, obviously MiSTer not being technically an emulator, are in sync, then we know that Genesis plus GX is doing as good of a job at emulating the hardware as MiSTer is. So we put them side by side, and I let both audio tracks run at the exact same time, because that's a really way to tell easily with your ear if there's any difference, and everything lined up exactly the same as MiSTer did to original hardware. So the Genesis plus GX core to start is at least doing the exact same thing that MiSTer is doing. But now let's go ahead and take a look at some gameplay between the software emulation and MiSTer, because really what it comes down to is, do the games play the same? So what I want you to do is listen to the music on the Genesis plus GX and then go over to MiSTer, and we'll talk about which one sounds better, or maybe they sound the same. Honestly, if there's any difference in the audio, my ear cannot tell. I match them volume-wise, and if you're wearing headphones, maybe you can hear something I can't, but they both sound absolutely great to me. I have no issues with either, so we're going to call that a draw. What I like to compare is the dithering pattern on the spotlights in the second area of Streets of Rage. And honestly, it is just pixel peeping, but it's a fun way just to take a look and see what a MiSTer core is doing versus one of the leading Sega Genesis emulators. And as we pause the game at the same time, both dithering patterns look really nice. I'd say MiSTer is maybe 1 to 2% cleaner as far as the signal is concerned. It's a little bit more vibrant on the color too, but honestly this is a draw. It looks perfect no matter what you do. Well, what I wanted to do as a comparison as far as sync is concerned is actually let it run longer, because sometimes within 15 to 20 seconds things will not get out of sync, but if you let them run up to a minute, you might start seeing discrepancies in the lock or lack thereof. On the left we have MiSTer, on the right we have the Genesis plus GX emulator, and this is Splatterhouse Part 2. I'm using the exact same ROM for my MiSTer as I am for these tests on all the games as well. And what I did notice, once we start letting this run a little longer, the Genesis plus GX emulator is going to get 2 frames out of sync compared to MiSTer and original hardware. Now, is this fundamentally an issue as far as your gameplay is concerned? Absolutely not. But when we're looking for small discrepancies, you can see that the titles are popping up a little bit too early on the Genesis plus GX. I counted in Resolve by using the arrow keys to scrub frames, and it was exactly 2 frames that it skipped ahead on. Now that could just be down to system resources. Maybe something happened and maybe they are supposed to be synced. I don't have the underlying data for that because it's not something that I can actually access, nor could anybody else. But the interesting thing is I left both audio tracks playing over top of one another, and those did not desync. So for some reason the video is ever so slightly changing versus the audio signal. But taking a look at the Genesis GX Plus emulator on Splatterhouse, everything looks and plays absolutely beautifully, and I have played Splatterhouse 2 to death. I've probably beaten this game 30 times in my lifetime, maybe more. I don't keep too close of track. And going over to MiSTer, it looks identical. It might be 1 to 2% more vibrant again, but that is, I'm sure, down to just, for MiSTer I have to use a capture card. For Genesis plus GX, I am just using OBS. So those small things can create ever so slight discrepancies. When I was comparing these, I actually did find something interesting. This is MiSTer, and you'll see on the right there's a little strip of pixels near the door. This is Genesis plus GX, little strip of pixels. This is original hardware, and they aren't there, so it's a really small difference, but I just noticed that and thought I would mention it, not sure what is going on there. But as far as the boss fight's concerned, these are so close in emulation that I literally beat the boss and die within frames of 2 different playthroughs. But again, comparing Sonic 3, MiSTer to the GX, side by side, locked to frames, we hit Knuckles at the exact same time. There is no separation whatsoever. So now for fun, even though this is a software versus MiSTer test, let's bring the CDX version in as well. We have all 3 versions running simultaneously, locked to the same frame in resolve, and as we come through and encounter Knuckles, all 3 platforms hit at exactly the same time. So all 3 of these are frame accurate across the board. But go ahead and listen to the music. This music is so iconic, maybe you'll hear a difference. I really didn't hear too much myself, but of course I'm just one person, so enjoy for like 25-30 seconds and I'll be right back. Both MiSTer and the Genesis Plus GX Core have absolutely outstanding audio in my opinion. It's even clearer than my original hardware with that analog SCART cable, just because that's analog and the capacitors might be a little old. But again, side-by-side comparison, frame lock, this flame wall comes all the way up and recedes into the top of the screen at the exact same rate, as does Rocket Knight Adventure. When Rocket takes that sword out and you hear that shink, everything matches, all the rotations are the same, and the big boss comes in. But listen to the Konami jingle. This might have a difference, I'm not sure. To my ear, the MiSTer Konami logo jingle has a little bit more range, and I'm no audiophile, I'm not even sure if range is the right word I want to be using here, but it sounds a little bit deeper and a little bit more rich. You tell me in the comments below what you think. But taking a look at Rocket Knight Adventure first on the Genesis Plus GX, you get slowdown when the 3 pigs in the car come by, and you get the same slowdown on original hardware. Let's see what MiSTer is doing. I just want to make sure that it's slowing down in the exact same place, because that's what we should be expecting. Once we hit that car, we should see slowdown. And it takes me a little bit to get there, but you can kind of see the difference in the color profiles, or the lack thereof. But here comes the car. I totally duffed that first hit, but as I hit it, the exact same slowdown comes out. So we're dealing with the same instances on the Genesis Plus GX and on MiSTer. So what have we found in this comparison? As far as MiSTer versus the leading recommended to me, Sega Genesis emulator, they are extremely close, 99.8% compared to one another. The only difference I could find was that in Splatterhouse Part 2, the intro, lost sync by 2 frames on the video, not the audio. But hey, use whatever you'd like. I have no opposition to software emulation. I'm not a MiSTer enthusiast. I just like playing video games. The only thing that MiSTer has as an advantage is it's a lot easier to take to your friend's house than a computer. But I'll be back next Thursday with a video in the MiSTer series. I'll have videos on Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as well. Short of that, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.